So, I played the Elden Ring DLC on PS4 Slim, and it was actually pretty good. Most of the time. But I guess I shouldn't really be too surprised about it. I mean, the fact that an almost 8-year-old console at this point can even run an open world this big with decent graphics is already a miracle. Seriously though, props to the people at FromSoft for optimizing the DLC enough so that last-gen consoles can play it. Well, at least for the PS4. Don't know how the Xbox One performs. Heard that thing has problems running the base game. Still, having the DLC run on an 8-year-old PS4 Slim that's as dusty as an abandoned car and with thermal paste about as non-existent as your father is no small feat. So let's give a round of applause to Michael Zaki and his team. Quick disclaimer, this part of the video is about the performance of the DLC, but it's not going to be very analytical, mostly just talking about the things I noticed on my playthrough. Also spoilers, but come on now, it's been 2 months since the DLC released, where have you been?
Dude! What the?
Anyways, let's begin. As I've previously said, the DLC looks gorgeous. The fact that this is on 8-year-old hardware is still mind-boggling to me. Although it shouldn't be, as Elden Ring was developed with last-gen consoles in mind, which is probably why it was even possible to optimize the DLC on last-gen in the first place. This doesn't mean everything was smooth sailing though. Throughout the DLC, there were moments when the PS4 struggled with running its open world. Even in the early areas of the DLC this happened. Could be because of the PS4 rendering an entirely new area, so it needed a moment to process. But another possibility is the furnace golem that isn't roaming around in the background anymore, so just pretend it's still there. Now, giant enemies in general seem to cause a few performance issues, but fun fact about the furnace golems in particular is that they are apparently always loaded in, even when you're far away. How do I know this? I watched Dooley the Witch. But she did state in her video that the furnace golems far away from where you're located have reduced textures so they don't turn your system into a microwave. So I don't know for sure if the golems are the cause considering this, but it's probably both these factors honestly. After getting over the early performance issues, I proceeded to explore the DLC's vast open world. And by explore, I mean collect every Shadow Erdtree fragment from IGN's guide. While doing so, I noticed another thing that causes frame drops. Torrent. Why, you may ask? Well, when on Torrent, what's in view of your screen constantly changes because riding a horse moves you from one place to another very quickly. Like, wow! Who would have thought that riding a horse makes you travel faster? Anyways, this means that the PS4 is rendering a lot more things on screen when riding Torrent, which can cause a few frame drops. Usually, this doesn't bother me too much, but there were a few times when it happened while fighting enemies, so it can get a little annoying. Speaking of enemies, fighting some of them can make my PS4 catch on fire. First one's the previously mentioned furnace golem. Besides them being very large, which that alone causes performance issues, they also have big AoE attacks which make my PS4 cry inside. Second one is the Ghost Flame Dragon that is also a big enemy with a few AoE attacks in its moveset. And then the third one is the Corrupted Tree Spirit from the base game that is another big enemy which also has AoE. Yeah, the point is, big enemies and AoE attacks cause issues. The base game has this problem too, so it's not surprising it's present in the DLC as well. Another issue are the random frame drops when exploring areas like Belurat, the underground forges, and the near Lim. Now I don't know for sure why this happens. My guess is that it's due to the dense enemy population in these areas being a little too much for the PS4 to handle. But then again, every area has these occasional frame drops, it's just that the previously mentioned areas do it a lot more than the others. Honestly, this paired with all the problems mentioned before annoyed me enough to the point that I changed my beautiful Nier Automata wallpaper to a generic black one, in the hopes that it'll increase my PS4's performance. Didn't work. Well, maybe it did work, but it only slightly improved it, cause I'ma be real with you chief, I did not notice much of a difference. Although, the performance wasn't so bad that it was unbearable. Besides, there were times where the DLC runs pretty good. Usually happens when exploring catacombs, or when exploring areas that are not too crowded. Now, the boss experience in the DLC is actually pretty good performance-wise, which is a bit odd since a lot of these bosses have massive spectacle attacks with a lot of effects going on, which, considering the Furnace Golem's AoE attacks, should have made my PS4 struggle. Yet, when I fought these bosses, there weren't any noticeable drops in performance. But then again, most of these bosses are placed within enclosed arenas, thus removing the need to render surrounding areas or enemies. So while the performance was great, some of their attacks on the other hand can be annoying. But not all bosses have bullshit attacks, and while they are definitely a lot harder than the base game bosses, they don't ever cross the line of being too unfair. Except Radon. Radon's got hands. But hey, at least I can see my character die to him over and over again with stable performance. All in all, the Elden Ring DLC runs well enough for you to have a fun time. It looks surprisingly good, and when it's not framing, it has an alright 24 to 28 FPS. I think. Don't quote me on that. Honestly, I'm just glad I can play the DLC and be able to enjoy it, though this does show that the PS4 and other consoles in the same generation are nearing the end of their lifespan. This is the part of the video where I talk about the state of PS4 releases. Now, despite what I said about Elden Ring being designed for last gen, I was still kinda surprised FromSoft even gave last gen the opportunity to play the DLC. I thought they'd just lock us out of the option like a lot of game devs do nowadays. Sure, it is just an expansion for a game that is capable of being played on the PS4, but a lot of game devs out there opt out of trying to optimize games on last gen. For example, gacha games. Newer gacha releases like Zenless Zone Zero, Wuthering Waves, and Honkai Star Rail don't have a PS4 release, despite each having one for the PS5, which feels weird because I can play these gacha games on my phone, but not my gaming console made for gaming? Especially considering said gaming console can play the new Elden Ring DLC, but not a fucking gacha game? Then again, I suppose it is a lot easier to release a game on modern consoles than it is to release it on what is pretty much the equivalent of a BlackBerry cell phone at this point. We're nearing the retirement of last-gen consoles, and it's inevitable really. Games from this point onward will only improve in terms of graphics. Well, most of them will. So, because of this, it really isn't optimal to be trying to release a game on what is pretty much considered ancient hardware nowadays. So I can't blame game devs for not trying to, especially since current gen consoles aren't hard to find anymore. But Shadow of the Erdtree, as well as other fairly recent game releases like Jedi Survivor and God of War Ragnarok, proves that the PS4 still got enough power to run certain newer releases. Hell, even the new Black Ops game will be releasing on last gen, although it remains to be seen whether or not it can even run half decently on those. PlayStation has stated in a financial review that they will stop making games for the PS4 around 2025, so at least PS4 owners still have a year before there will be no more new games on the PS4. Even if no more AAA titles come to the PS4, I hope PlayStation at the very least support indie game releases on the PS4 for a few more years to come, because these indie games don't promote themselves with highly realistic graphics or how many damn microtransactions they have. These are games made with passion, created for those who play them to have a simple but very fun experience, and more often than not, these games will have stylized or pixelized graphics, something the PS4 can run very well, as opposed to the photorealistic graphics most AAA games go for. Nevertheless, I'm just glad I can play Shadow of the Erdtree on outdated hardware, and if I still have a year of games to look forward to, that's great. New games released on the PS4 don't have to run on 60 FPS or have pretty graphics. Nah, I'm pretty sure modern games have surpassed the capabilities of last-gen consoles anyways. But being able to play new games with a stable 30 FPS and half-decent graphics is good enough for me, and I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate the choice to do so too. Anyways, thanks for watching. As you may have noticed, this is my first YouTube video. I'm a guy who likes to watch a lot of video essays in my spare time, so I figured, why don't I try making one myself? Although I wouldn't call this video a full-on essay, it's more like a diet version of one. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you could give this video a like so I can gain some relevance on YouTube, but that's your choice. In any case, have a nice day.